Shwmai a croeso cynnes, and welcome to the What's Your Story podcast. I'm James Owen, a Welsh filmmaker and storyteller, and I'm passionate about sharing stories. This podcast is all about business owners sharing their journey, and we'll be speaking with directors, entrepreneurs and creatives from all across Wales to learn from their experiences. We believe everyone has a story to tell. What's your story? Shwmai, and welcome to the next instalment of the What's Your Story podcast. And excited to have something a little bit different, hear a bit of more of a personal story on the podcast today. And I've got Martyn, who is here with me, come to Llanelli, sunny Llanelli, to share his story. Thank you, Martyn, for coming on.
Thanks, James. Thanks for inviting me down.
You're most welcome, mate. And it's great to have someone in football, because I'm a rugby guy.
Wrong shape ball.
Wrong shape ball. Wrong shape ball. Well, Martyn is a mental health advocate, specifically in sports, which is something I'm very passionate about. Doesn't matter what sport, any sport where we can talk about mental health and how players, committee, supporters can all be supported. Martyn is very, very passionate about that. So we're going to hear a little bit about his adventures in sport. He currently works in Tata Steel as a mental health officer, I believe.
Advisor.
Mental health advisor. Supporting, which now in Port Talbot is very, very relevant with sort of the news that's been going on. So supporting them, working in Tata Steel, and a big footballer.
Ex-footballer.
Retired now.
Yes,
retired. But Martyn, really appreciate you coming on. And Martyn has got a really new, exciting venture as he's established his new business, Springfield Advisory. It's a consultancy all around supporting businesses and supporting their staff and their colleagues with any mental health concerns. And it's really exciting to hear that you've been through a lot of stuff, which we're going to talk about. But wanting to help other people, especially those in business. So let's go back to maybe what is the start. You're from Baglan?
Yeah, Baglan, Talbot, born and bred. Yeah, born and bred Talbot lad.
And tell me a little bit about your upbringing, your family. What was it like growing up?
Just very close-knit family. You know, mum and dad both worked. I've got an older brother. Social circle, football was a huge part of my life growing up. It's probably all I ever wanted to do since I was 6, was kick a ball. Occupied most of my parents' time running us around, as lots of families do. So that was the basis of growing up as a child, really, in Baglan.
Did you want to grow up being maybe a Welsh footballer? Was that
yeah,
the dream?
We wanted all that dream, didn't we? But you realise at some point it's not going to happen, but there's still so much to gain from being involved in sport, and especially football in my case, yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So, you had a good upbringing, working class family. Sounds very similar to like maybe my experiences. And so you didn't go to university, you just come out of school and just got a job. What did that sort of look like for you? Yeah,
I didn't feel university was me at the time. I took a job in Morrison Hospital at the time, working in the X-ray department, in the offices, and just sort of built around that. Had a great time as a youngster working in hospital, lots of people, lots of fun, great times. Learned a lot of things. Then ended up working in the operating theatre, which taught me a lot. A lot about life and a lot about situations and pressure and things like that. So that was where we started with that. And then career kind of changed then, James, as it does, and things move. I ended up doing a little bit of medical repping, so a similar field, but more sort of, business side and out and dealing with people. But that's me. I am a people person. I just love being around people. So I suppose that's where that linked.
Would you say you're a people person?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I enjoy being around and in people, with people's company. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So you had this sort of experience working in healthcare where you got to explore and I guess get a lot of life experience, especially in your community. And when you're working in sort of medical sales and you've had an extensive experience in sales, but things were going well for you, Martyn. You had, I believe, would you say you had it all? Did you tick all the boxes?
As much as you wanted to be, James, I was married, 2 kids, the 4-bedroom house, playing football to the level that I wanted to play, to a great social circle. Challenges the life bring, obviously, but, things were going as smooth as they could have been at that point, yeah.
And do you think when you were working in sales, would you have acknowledged you had any bad mental health?
No, not at the time. No, not at the time. Time away from the family now and again is a struggle, but didn't feel it really affected me at any point. No, at that time, not at all.
So when was maybe the first time in your life that you acknowledged that your mental health was bad? Or maybe there was an issue?
I went through some challenges in life, like divorce, like redundancy, but I think the real sort of light bulb moment for me, unfortunately, was a tragic suicide of a friend and a committee member at our club. Probably made me realise how close I was to that point, and that could have been me. And that kind of gave me that trigger really for myself to be aware of where I was in life and what I'd been through. So that was the real moment for me. And I kind of took a back step to what had gone on over the previous 5-6 years to have a look of where I'd been. And I think that was the moment really that allowed me to do that.
So you're a big advocate for sport, volunteer. So you're a part of, is it Trevelyan Football Club?
Trevelyan Football Club in Talbot, yes. That hasn't been my club for life. We went there because we set the veterans over 40s football team. So I became part of that with some friends that I'd been friends with since the age of 6, so a great bunch back together. We were successful on the field and we had great social life off the field. I then got involved in volunteering in the club, became part of the committee, did a little bit more than I'd planned to do, as we all do in sports clubs. Once you're in, you're in. And then obviously the tragedy happened.
Okay, so your friend Darren sadly passed away in 2019. Can you talk me through that sort of, that whole episode? You had a meeting. Yeah,
look, Darren had been was going through a difficult patch in his life, but probably we thought no different to anybody else, just normal life occurrences. Darren was quite chatty about his issues, but only obviously to a certain point. So people thought he was okay, then he was talking and he was opening up. And then there was a committee meeting, one evening. He left the club at 9-10 o'clock. And then tragically, 7 o'clock the following morning, somebody walking past the football club on a dog walk saw Darren hanging from the crossbar. Just rocked everybody, goosebumps now every time I talk about it. Rocked the club, the community, his family, his friends, it was just that sort of stereotypical, surely not Darren. He was that smiley, happy guy that everybody has in their club.
And this was the moment for you that you thought, that could have been me?
Yeah, it could have been. I can't say I ever had those real latter stage thoughts of that, but I can't say they weren't in my mind at some point. And I thought, that could easily have been him. His circumstances are so similar to where I was. That could easily have been me, yeah. And I thought, I need to explore where I'd been. I needed to make people close to me aware of where I'd been as well. And that was a scary step, to actually open up and tell my story to people. Especially a room, the first time I told it was in front of 30, 40 of friends from the club that I'd known for 30 years, 40 years, 10 years, 5 years, a big mix of people who knew nothing. They just thought I was, my nickname is Waggy. They just thought I was Waggy from the club. That's what people just thought. They didn't realise what was going on. It was a difficult time for me to open up, but I'm so glad that I have, because it's changed how I feel about stuff.
So you would have been, 40 odd maybe when this happened?
Yeah, so 5 years ago now, yeah. So it's 44 when this happened. I was 36 probably when I look back to where my difficult time started. So it was quite prolonged.
And would it be fair to say maybe this experience and this tragedy got you thinking about your own personal experiences?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it just made me. And when we get to talk about the business, it's quite prominent in it. It made me take a reset to where I'd been. So it's like stop and pause and think of what I'd gone through. And all I'd done was block everything out, hide everything, hide away from everybody, hide away from my feelings. I was just existing through life. So the way I tell a lot of people, I tell my talks, I wasn't living life. I was just trying to get through each day without somebody asking me if I was okay. Somebody looking me in the eyes and getting out the real story. It's extremely close to my parents, so not wanting to spend a lot of time with them, regular time, but not lengthy periods of time, because I didn't want them to ask me if I was okay. So those type of things within my life, you know, financial troubles, avoiding, not opening letters, not answering phone calls, all that was built around that really when I stopped and looked where I'd been. And I thought, I can't carry on doing this. I was taking too many risks. I was drinking too much. You know, I wasn't looking after my finances. I wasn't looking after myself. And I thought something's going to happen in my life here now where it's going to go really wrong.
So yeah, that's quite tough pill to swallow, really, because I think I'm not 44 yet, but I can imagine, you know, going through a lot of this stuff, marriage breaking down, you know, just juggling life, juggling maybe your purpose and things like that, and maybe thinking, okay, well, yeah, maybe there's a reason why all this happened, and you know, it's bringing maybe things up then, and you started to explore why maybe you weren't right. It's probably quite challenging to think, look back, and because when all these things are happening to you, you maybe didn't know why. No,
not at all. Didn't realize what was going on. You just thought it was everyday life. You know, go and have a beer with the boys, shut your problems out, have a glass of wine. You just thought that's what you do. You can ignore things, and then, you know, a big thing for me was my two children, my real drive through that. You know, they're 20 and 15 now, my son and my daughter, and I'm lucky now. I've got a stepdaughter and a grandson, part of my little gang now. But back then, it was just those two, and it was me, and I fought hard to keep those bonds going. But I suppose the bit that's hard for me is to look back, and during that time, was I really the dad that I wanted to be? Yeah, I never let them down. I know I was always there. But was I really that dad that I wanted to be? And I think that was a really hard point for me to try and understand that.
Yeah, and I guess family, now talking about your grandchildren and things, family is probably a really important value to you.
That's huge for me. You know, it's just the main part of it all. And this is the reason why you do things, isn't it? You know, you want to strive to make yourself better for them, you know, because maybe I wasn't that, but they've never admitted that to me, and I've sat and talked to them, and they'll never say that. But I still get this nagging doubt, was I the greatest father at the time? But I'm pretty confident I was. It's just my self-doubt at the time, isn't it? Because I knew what I was doing, isn't it? You know, what I'd gone through, really.
Yeah, those things would they'd creep in.
Yeah.
So going back to sport now, we've got this. Well, you love this game, football.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. You love the club. You love the people. And no matter what club you've been involved with, I can probably tell, given you 100% any club you've represented. Yeah. This thing happens with Darren. You've lost a friend. Probably a lot of the boys in the team really shocked, and there's probably a real difficult atmosphere in the environment. And did you think that, okay, we need to now look at how maybe some of the players, some of the supporters, some of the committee members, how they can maybe get support? Is that something that kick-started this business idea?
Yeah, look, I think at the time it was like the key to it all was we never want this to ever happen again to anybody we know, especially as our club, but as part of the community. And what can we do to stop this happening? You know, I put my hand up to volunteer to be that mental health officer. But when I look back again now, it's probably a sign for me to explore where I had been again. It was the trigger I needed to look at what I'd had going on in my own life. And then, yes, it develops on to work, into business, into life. I've been very fortunate that something I'm passionate about has got me an opportunity to work for Tata Steel. You know, as their first ever mental health wellbeing advisor is a massive achievement for me, considering where I've come from. And now, obviously, Springfield Advisory on the back of that, it gives me an opportunity. But it does bore back to the core of it all, what Darren's family went through and his friends went through and the community went through and what the club went through. We don't want that to happen to anybody we know again. And I think that was the real point of it for us.
So a huge experience to learn. And I think that's great that you almost using Darren's memory as a mission to help other people.
Yeah, look, and we speak closely with his sister and family regarding that. And we've opened a wellbeing hub in the club as well, where people can come and share their stories and access counselling services. And we're very proud of that, what we've achieved.
And Trevelyan, I believe,
Yes.
are one of 2 sports clubs or football clubs
Yes.
in Wales that have mental health officers.
Yeah. I think we were nigh on the first club in Wales to have a dedicated mental health officer. But we act more than the club. We act pretty much around South Wales. I've spoken to clubs from Carmarthen to Caerphilly about mental health, including some of the referee societies, Wales Football Association. So across the board, and if you look at the comparisons from us, we're a volunteer-led committee. The other club in Wales to have a mental health officer is Wrexham. So the funding's slightly different to where we are at the minute, considering what's going on there. But obviously, the gentleman there who runs that program is as passionate and dedicated as anybody else. So,
But you don't do it for the money.
No,
obviously.
look, it's something that I stick with me, and I've been offered to be paid to go into sports clubs. I know the challenge of being involved in a sports club financially. You've just talked about being a treasurer of a sports club, Jibs, and that. So the challenges.
I know the challenges.
I will never charge a sports club for going to deliver a talk. If they want to donate into our wellbeing hub, that's no problem, but I will never bill, and that's my real sort of ethical point. That's very different to working for businesses.
Of course.
But being into sports clubs, it'll never, that's never something I've ever done and won't do,
So it's great to see that you're passionate about football clubs in Wales,
Yeah.
sports clubs, and people having the right level of support, the right
Yeah.
level of advice,
Yeah.
and just having somebody to talk to, because
Yeah.
you're not a counsellor. You.
I'm not a counsellor. I don't want to be a counsellor. I have no intention to be a counsellor. I just want to be that guy that people are comfortable with, that they know they can trust, and they know what they tell me is confidential. And I'll give them informal, relaxed advice of where they need to go and what they could do to help, and know that they can reach out. I think part of me over the last couple of years has stepped away from the actual football side, and I think that helps, because about sport, if I tell a manager I'm struggling, he's going to leave me out and put me on the bench, and all these things exist, isn't it? So to separate myself from the actual football side of it over the last couple of years has helped with that stigma. So it's just being that guy who somebody can come and talk to, yeah.
Have a chat with Waggy.
Just come and have a cup of tea with Waggy, yeah.
Cup of tea with Waggy. Have you maybe got some stories, and obviously, anonymise them, because I'm sure you appreciate the confidentiality, isn't it? Have you got any stories or any good examples of how maybe you've supported people, whether it's Trevelyan or other football clubs in sport specifically?
Yeah, look, we had a very serious incident roughly 2 years ago in our club where we had a call from somebody who's involved in the club's wife saying that he was, not doing so great and was suicidal, and we acted on that very quickly. And we stopped a suicide attempt 2 days on the trot of this guy. And I think the messages were to if we hadn't created that awareness in the club, it was actually the chairman of the club who phoned me to say, Wag, we need to do something. And I was like, look, just keep an eye on him. And I was taking my daughter horse riding at the time, so I wasn't really thinking in that frame of mind. And I thought, hang on a minute. And I stepped back. I said, just ring the police now. And we 999'd him, and we saved his life. So for me, whatever we've done, that's enough.
And was this a player?
No. It was just somebody attached to the club. Yeah, somebody in our community who lived near the club. Somebody we all knew. But it was just the fact for me, and it's not a moment to be proud of, is it? Because it's a tragic moment to where he was. It's very proud that the community knew they could reach out to somebody in our club, and somebody in our club knew they could reach out, and we had that service, and I think that's huge for me. And even probably 18 months down the line, after I've done a talk in a certain football club, somebody will text me and say, all right, Wag, I'm struggling a bit. Can we have a chat? That means we're doing what we should be doing.
And I simply, I think the message you're trying to get across is just having a chat.
Yeah, simple. Yeah, a lot of the times I see the people once, and it's enough. So they offload, they get some advice, we check in, see how they are, and that's enough, isn't it? And that's the big thing, is the stigma, isn't it? It's not opening up, it's not talking, it's not wanting to put yourself out there. And you don't need to put yourself out there, you just need to come and see somebody in a confidential space. And people think they can't talk to people close to them. But what they need to remember, and this is one of the messages I put out in my talk, James, we've delivered this all over South Wales now, is your actual support network whether that's your parents, your children, your friends, your teammates, your partner, your work colleagues. They're the most important people in your lives. And we forget about them because we don't want them to worry them and we don't want to burden them. But those people will never, ever let you down. They'll never take the mick. They'll never judge. But what they will do, they'll never let you down. And when I do my presentations and my talks, that's a slide I really focus on. You just have a think who's there and they will never let you down. And we've talked about rocks in our life, partners, and they're the ones, and they're the ones.
Yeah, that's a lovely little gesture to the people in our lives who support us.
100%, yeah.
Sure. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about sport, which I love, even if it's football today and not rugby.
Yeah, look, football's my passion, but it's anything, to be honest with you. I enjoy any sport, so it's whatever.
I've never experienced it, but certainly in Carmarthenshire, I've heard of lots of instances where young men, especially, and players, people I've played rugby against, and sadly they've taken that decision in their lives, and it's horrible to hear.
Yeah, it's horrible.
But to know that there's something brewing in sports. I don't know what is going on in rugby. I know there are lots of initiatives here, and I think as a rugby club, we support Mindlessly. There's Loose Heads.
Yes.
There's these initiatives that are starting up, so there is more and more.
I'd be more than happy to come down.
Yeah, well, there we go.
We don't stick it to football. We've done some rugby clubs. So.
Oh, you do rugby clubs?
Yeah, we do whoever asks.
Perhaps, we can get you come
of course,
Furnace Rugby Club.
Be more than happy,
A chat with Waggy.
Yeah, be more than happy,
Sponsored by Trevelyan.
There we go. We get all mentions,
But sport, it's obviously a place where a lot of people are quite vulnerable and where maybe a lot of people are experiencing bad mental health. But business is another world completely, isn't it? And I think there is a bit of an untapped market if we talk about the business opportunity,
of course,
right? Because we're all in business to make money. Also, that's not the sole reason we're in business. We're in business because we want to help people. I want to help people tell their stories. You want to help people have a chat and get better, right?
Yeah.
But if I look at, I'm a small business. I don't have lots of money to invest,
of course,
in people management and healthcare and all these things. So for somebody like me, having support seems very, very expensive.
Yes.
And it seems like an investment that probably I can't make.
No.
So you've spotted a bit of a gap in the market here where lots of smaller businesses maybe can't access the support of the likes of Tata.
Yeah, of course.
Or bigger companies.
Yeah. And I think that's what I noticed. I like I said to you earlier, Jibs, I helped a friend of mine who ran a company, employed 100 people. And when I look at the support offering that Tata can offer these staff and what he can offer people, he was leaning on me as a volunteer to help him. And I thought, how many companies are at this point? But the problems don't change whether you work for Tata or you work for X engineering or construction or whatever it is. The society problems are still the same. So who's helping those guys? And even the pressure on the business owner, like you say, financially. I want to be a responsible employer and offer that support. But how do I, as a business, afford to pay X amount of thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands, in fact, some of these major companies to offer that support? So that's where I saw the link, really, that, 5 years of building a profile in the community and gaining that trust and gaining that profile and reputation of somebody they could trust, but also they're looking after their staff as well. And that was really important to me, and it's still, an important factor. And I don't want to be at that top end of pricing. I want to be affordable, but obviously as a business, you've got to make money. But, I want to be somewhere where these small to medium enterprises can actually say, yeah, we can do that. We can look after our staff and we can afford it. And that's where I want to be.
That's good. So, Springfield Advisory.
Yeah.
That's the brand.
That's the
what
brand,
you've developed now.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to hear about the opportunities you're having. And where do you see Springfield Advisory in the next 5 years?
Who knows, I think is the answer. I think we worked hard, recently to get to where we are. We're not a fully functioning business. Our website's going to be ready in sort of 2 to 3 weeks. But we've gained some really good, bonds and relationships with quite established companies in East Talbot over the last 6 months. we're quite far down the line with negotiations, and it's just our next step for us. Some of the conversations we're having with some local schools are really exciting. I'm on a different probably angle to what lots of people think. We're looking at supporting the teachers rather than the pupils. Very stressful job, as everybody knows, and what support is out there for them. So that's an angle that could probably make the business, I don't know where it could take us if we get something in line with that, isn't it? But it's one step at a time. I've very much learned that it's a slow process and we've got to do it right.
Looking back on your career, right, just in terms of your jobs, you were very fortunate to get in Tata.
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure that's opened a lot of doors for you in this time period, hasn't it?
Look, I think more than anything than the doors, James, it's just given me great experience and some learnings, from the business. I haven't got a bad word to say about the business. They're going through a difficult time. I've met some great people. Taught me a lot of stuff about business, gave me confidence. I went into the business probably thinking, a bit of imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Am I right for this role? Is it too big for me? These type of things. But then you become comfortable doing it when you have to prove yourself. And I proved myself with 6 months of nearly every day telling my personal story to anybody who went to hear it. 2,500, nearly 3,000 employees have heard that story now across the UK.
Wow.
And that was just me saying, look, I'm here. I've been there. Come and talk. That's what it's about, isn't it?
And when you say you've been there, divorce,
yeah,
debt,
yeah,
problems with alcohol,
yeah.
There's a couple of things there. Maybe there might be some more.
There's
things
more. There's nerves, anxiety, insomnia. When if I do come to Furnace to do the talk, I put a slide up that shows that the cycle of it and what I encountered. And I think the message is, if you don't deal with the first one, it quickly snowballs into a big ball, and then that ball's hard to stop rolling down the hill.
It's exciting to see where the business is going, the opportunities you've got. Now, looking back now, because I think you're a people person.
Yes.
I'm a people person.
I can tell. Yeah.
I've worked in sales. You've worked in sales.
Yeah.
What's it like now, looking back? If you were to see, 10 years ago, what sort of job you had and where life was in your career, would you have thought, you'd ever be in the position you are now where you're out there? Because you needed to get out of sales. Like me, I was in a sort of environment where, I'd radically become a Christian about 9 years ago, and my values changed overnight. My values are just replaced with good Christian values, and I realized I couldn't work for some of these businesses. Their ethics didn't align with my values. And I think you had similar experiences, didn't you?
Yeah, I think looking back, things weren't great when I look back at some of the things that went on. But when you're in that cycle, it's very difficult to realise that because you're numbers driven, sales driven. But also as a part of my well-being as well. It wasn't doing my mental health and well-being any good. So it was a bit of a two-street approach again on that, really. I didn't agree with some of the stuff. Yes. Did I enjoy some of it? And I enjoyed a lot of the people, and I met a wide range of people doing it, but it wasn't doing me any good towards the end, and I needed to get out, I think. But then sales teaches you other things, doesn't it? Confidence in front of people, these experiences come from that, don't they?
Yeah, this is probably the third, fourth podcast you've done. You've done others, have you?
First actual podcast, look, so there's a mark for you, but we do webinars, we do talks, in Tata Steel, we do a monthly webinar around well-being, I'll just say back to the volunteering, we go out into sports clubs talking to people. So I think a lot of that has come from sales, having a talk to people you don't know and you've never met before and trying to sell them something. I think that has, again, life is about learning, isn't it? Whether it's the right experience or not, if you learn something from it, I think that's the way forward.
Brilliant. If you could teach or share a tip with any sort of business owners, maybe listening to the podcast, or any individuals that tune in, is there anything that you could share if there was one thing to improve somebody's mental health, or maybe you're a director and you're responsible for staff, what's maybe one simple thing that people can do to reach out to their team?
Look, I'm not sure I'm in a position to offer people business advice. We're very new into Springfield Advisory. We're not particularly off the ground a minute, although the foundations are strong. But what I would say, culture is so important in any organisation. 4 people to 4,000 people. And that culture's got to come from the top. So leaders' behaviour and culture is huge. So if they provide their team with a vehicle or the channels to be open and be honest and not the fear of saying I'm struggling, that creates the culture in the business where then stigma comes away. So that's what, that's where I think is the tip.
Culture, yeah, you're so right. Leading from the top is so important if you do it right. Brilliant. Okay, and just lastly, then, this podcast is all about stories.
Yeah,
and we've gotten to hear a little bit about your personal story. I think we could probably do a Netflix documentary. This could be a series.
Yeah,
it really could.
Yeah,
there's a lot we haven't even unpacked.
No, we haven't.
But there's only so much time, and I think some of the stuff you've shared have been really, really good, and I think there's a lot of value people can take out of that and their experiences, and hopefully any people working in sports, playing in sports, would hear Darren's story and would take something from that, hopefully save a life. But if there was anything that you could sit down and hear somebody's story, if you had this opportunity to sit down on a podcast and get to hear what their story is all about, who might that inspirational or influential person be that you'd love to hear from?
I think it's 2 for me, and I'll go back to football on this rather than business. Being a proud Welshman and a proud football fan, I think, the one that stands out for me is the Gary Speed story. I still recollect the day, and I think everybody can remember that day. And just the questions why, what had gone on to get him to that point, and how couldn't he feel that he couldn't have reached out? A lot of celebrity friends, are very vocal, that they were so close to him, they were his best mate. Why didn't he feel that he could talk to somebody? Was it the way football was at the time, the way sport was, the way celebrity was? I don't know, but I think I would like to be able to ask him that question. So that's the one for me. And
Gary Speed, that's a great example.
And I think Wales have lost a true leader, a legend, and everything in that by that tragedy. So why couldn't he feel he could talk to that? And the other one, is another football one. Surprise, yeah. He did have a little spell of my club, which causes my mental health no good as an Everton fan, especially on the weekend. It is Gaza. Just an absolute genius. Very troubled. Why hasn't somebody looked after him? Why, how is he where he is, isn't it?
So 2 people in the sporting world you'd love to hear from.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Different questions to both of them, but similar lines, really.
Similar lines.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it's been privileged to hear some of your story, Martyn. Thank you for sharing that, because it's tough to share your experiences, and I'm sure you're getting an easier time to share as you get that message out there, what your story is. But it's hard. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being bold.
Yeah.
And hopefully, if there's any business leaders listening to this, if there's any people in the sporting world, whether it's football or rugby, hopefully if somebody listens to this, that they can take something positive, and hopefully someone in their sphere, their community, they could just talk.
Yeah, that's
and
all.
It's okay to talk.
It's okay. The famous saying, it's okay to talk.
It's okay to talk.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. Really appreciate the time coming me down. Like you say, any businesses want to reach out, have a look onto LinkedIn and our social media profiles, and any sports clubs, we're more than happy to travel and come and share that.
And if any businesses or sports clubs want to reach out to you, what's the best way they can get in touch? So the email for the business is springfieldadvisory@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. So just have a little look at what we got going on there. As I say, website launch in about 2 to 3 weeks. Also, just go on to Travailing Boys and Girls Club, any of the social media channels, and ask anybody there, and they'll point you in the direction. But if you're listening to this podcast now, the website's live. Yes. In the future. In the future, yes. Great. Thank you, Diolch Martyn, for coming down. Thank you very much. And best of luck with the new business venture. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.